clarity of communication drives action. It provides you inspiration to complete desired objectives. Catherine McCourt has over 20 years of sales, marketing, and business development experience. Her professional experience, along with her own soul journey, compelled her to become a life and transformational business coach. Her goal is to help entrepreneurs, businesses, and individuals to lead with purpose, to prosper. She works with clients around the globe to gain clarity of purpose and aligning those aspects in both their personal and professional lives in order to succeed. She joined me this week to have a conversation about business clarity, success, inclusion, and equality. I'm Kevin McShann. Let's have this conversation. If you're ready, I'm super delighted to be with you this afternoon to talk about your journey in business. Great to see you today, and thank you so very much for being here.
Yeah, great. Thank you.
So, Catherine, I know that your business coaching focuses on a purpose-driven burnout mindset and purpose-driven sales. So I'm wondering if you can tell me about all the great work that you do.
Sure. Becoming a life and business coach really was attractive to me because I have always been very curious about why things are the way they are, or why people do the certain things they do. And being a transformational coach allows me to really look at things holistically. And within everything that we do, there should be purpose. And it takes certain mindset to, get from A to B. And purpose-driven sales, the business side of it, really comes from my own experience and my own career. I have a 20-year history throughout my life working in what I thought my career would be in marketing specifically, but really led me to sales. And I guess you could say I caught the sales bug, but what I realized is that sales can have a really bad reputation, and it can have a really good one. And I'm someone who always thought that sales could be done in a much more authentic and better way, and which is how I've led my career to its success. And now I'm using my coaching as a platform to help coach others to do the same, and work from a place of purpose and integrity and authenticity in their sales career. But on the life side, the purpose and mindset really are the deep part of the work that I do, and helping people uncover and awaken their purpose. And really, you have to have the right mindset. So purpose and mindset are both the foundational things for you to really succeed in a fulfilling life.
Yeah, absolutely. And you alluded to this a little bit, but you also said your own personal soul journey sort of inspired the work that you do today. So I'm wondering if you can tell me just a little bit more about how it personally is meaningful for you for the work that you do.
Sure. So, my story, or my journey, I should say, is really a two-part journey. And as I mentioned, I've always been a very curious person, always really needing to understand the deeper why behind things. And also, wondering why, society has this almost one way of life. And I always thought everyone should be able to live the way that they want to live, and have some acceptance in that in the world. And just because you maybe don't want to rush to get married and have kids in your 20s and 30s, or you want to drive after a career, or vice versa, there really should be no judgment of how people choose to do that, and what I guess what methods they do to do that and live life. And so when I was in my 20s, I ended up, coming back from school and having this, career drive in me, which I've always had from a young age, and knew that I wanted to create a career before I settled down. And then my world was sort of flipped upside down in my 20s, and my mom and my sister were both diagnosed with life-threatening diseases, all within 1 year of each other. And it really threw me for a loop. It made me realize more than ever that I needed to find my own path and live a life that really resonated with me. But it also taught me a lot about the fact that I wasn't someone who was very vulnerable. I didn't know how to deal with my emotions. So I wasn't getting in life to where exactly I wanted to be, because of not dealing with certain things, not being able to manage my emotions around the news that happened to my family. And I got professional help when I finally realized I couldn't do it on my own. And that sort of started me on this path of clarity and, being able to deal with the emotions. My mom and my sister are absolutely fine today, so I'm grateful to say that. But once I saw that they were on the road to mending, or to, I should say, on the road to health again, I realized that now is my time. And if I don't make a change today towards the direction that I really want to go, then when am I going to do it? And this is in my late 20s when I decided to do this. And then I finally moved when I was 30, I moved across the country with no job. I just dropped everything and decided that this is what I wanted to do. I wanted to move somewhere that I thought gave me more of a lifestyle that resonated with me. So I moved from Montreal, Canada to Vancouver, to the West Coast, where the lifestyle was much more about being outdoors, being active, living a really healthy lifestyle. And I've always been a very active person. So that drew me to Vancouver, being a very different place than the rest of Canada. And also the weather, can't beat the weather. So a lot warmer winters. And then, sorry, I'll just fast forward to the second part, which was that 3 years into a career that I found this brand, I fell in love with, but 3 years in, I hit burnout. And I ended up being in burnout for 2 years before I really succumbed and realized how burnt out I actually was. And it was in a yoga class where I ended up, at the end of the yoga class, just sitting silent, and tears started to come down out of my eyes. And I was thinking, wow, there's something really wrong with me to be crying in yoga. I should feel relieved. And it brought me to a place of realizing that I hadn't stopped in the last 3 years. And while I was building this new career, and I didn't take time for myself. I didn't take care of myself. I had, some digestive issues that showed up. And so when I realized how burnt out I was, I had to consider what it is I'm doing. What am I really doing? And I love this brand, but is the job that I am doing actually the job I want to be doing? And I had outgrown the job. And I was lucky enough to be able to recreate, or not recreate, but create my own path within the company. They were open enough to say, hey, okay, we recognize you're burnt out. What do you want to do? Because we want to keep you. What do you want to do? And so I was able to create my own path, still within sales and business development, but create a whole new channel for that business over a period of, I just ended there in 2020. So it was 6 years that I spent building something new there that was more in line with who I was, and more in line with the type of sales I wanted to do. So that all led me to where I'm at today, which is now a coach, because I realized that I can have much more of an impact if I can help people get unstuck, if I can help people realize that they can create what they really want, if they can have the right tools and the right support, they can create the life that they truly want. And from a business standpoint, I have so much knowledge now with being in sales and business development for 20 years that I would love to coach others and empower them to do sales in a different way, and in the way that I think the world is moving, which is with a lot more authenticity, a lot more purpose, and that drive.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, I'm curious to ask you about when you work with people and they tell you the obstacles they overcome. I'm also curious to ask you, how do you use obstacles in business to create avenues of prosperity?
Sure. I mean, in business, there's all kinds, just as there are in life. So many challenges that we're faced with, and so many things that, can steer the business in a different direction. And so every challenge is a chance to learn. And I believe that every challenge is there for a reason. So whether that's challenge that the business has lost business, or whether it's challenging to gain business. And so I think it's just about, knowledge is power. I'm a big believer of that. So the more that you can learn about what's happening in this challenge, in the situation, meaning that holistic view of what's really the key contributors to why this is challenging or why this isn't working, I think is really the foundation of how you can start digging your way out of it, or how you can start changing it to a positive outcome, or even one that you just take away and go, right, you know what, that did suck, but we learned and we know what to do next time or how to move forward.
Yeah, absolutely. And Catherine, as I shared with you before we started recording, I was born with what's called a spastic quadriplegic cerebral palsy. It simply means that I don't have enough oxygen in my legs to walk normally. And I'm always interested to ask business people their view on diversity, equity, and inclusion. So I'll frame the question this way: in terms of making sure that all inclusive voices are heard in business, how do you think we accomplish that goal?
Sure. I mean, that is such a great question, because I do think, voices need to be heard. And right now, more and more people are trying to be heard, or some people are being louder than others. And it's creating a very interesting world right now. I think everyone should be empowered to share their thoughts, their ideas, their knowledge. And acceptance should be granted. And what I mean is acceptance should be heard, though not all opinions can necessarily be fully addressed or fully granted. But I think the acceptance to be heard should absolutely be there in all types of environments. And not to get into it, but I mean, look at what's happening right now during this trucker mandate protest. The ones who are standing up for their jobs and the right to continue to provide for their families. This is very different from those, that are now it's gotten out of hand. So, there's radicals out there, and there's other voices starting to create a mess of this whole deeper reason to why this group was, protesting in the first place. And I think without differences of opinions, the world would be a really boring place. I think inclusion in the workplace is so needed. We're a different world than we were 10 years ago. Heck, a different world than we are today, and in the last 2 years. So being inclusive allows us to be more aware. And I believe knowledge is power, like I mentioned before. So the more we know about things and hear others' opinions, the more we can create a better foot forward.
Yeah, I do that, and I'm also curious to ask you, how do you think we create a healthier environment when it comes to empowerment and giving people purpose behind their objectives?
Sure. I mean, purpose for me is knowing the true reason behind why we love the things that we do, or why we're doing the things that we do. And, purpose is also tied into people's values and what their natural gifts are and how they work. And I think if companies can be more attuned to how their employees are bringing value, not just value to their bottom line, but meaning their talents, their gifts, I think that the experience would be a lot different in the work world. And you'd be able to probably that there's probably a lot more you can gain than actually lose by allowing people to really shine their gifts while they're at work. And the empowerment piece, I mean, I love this word. It's giving people, young or old, really that opportunity to be confident, to show up how they authentically are, and share whatever their gifts, as I mentioned before, or talents are in the world. And, being able to empower people to, or guide them to have a voice and to feel confident, to say what they have to say is a beautiful thing. And yes, their voice may not always be accepted, as I mentioned before, but to have the confidence, or give people the empowerment to have the confidence to be able to show up authentically as themselves and speak their own truth or speak their own opinion, I think is a really beautiful thing for us to take notice of.
Yeah.
It challenges us, like, to bring it back to that challenge piece in business. I mean, you should be challenged by some of the people that you work with. And sometimes you find the better road or the better path when you allow people to ask questions that they're curious about. And maybe it will create a better foot forward.
Yeah, creating a pathway to get out of your comfort zone, I always say, is one of the most effective ways to grow, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. 100%.
And Catherine, I know that you host your own podcast called The Fearless Future, so I'm wondering if you can tell me all about the podcast and what it's all about.
Sure. So this really stems from a dream of mine when I was a lot younger. I always wanted to be a talk show host. Because of my curiosity in the world, I always love chatting to people. I love knowing their stories. I love understanding, as I said very early on in this conversation, that I just love knowing what makes people tick, and why they do the things that they do. So I called the podcast Fearless Future with Catherine McCourt. So Fearless Future really started out this podcast as more of a platform to be able to share people's stories of transformation, and people who have overcome certain obstacles and fears in their life and built something totally new for themselves. But what I've recognized is that my own curiosity gets the best of me, and I really want to know a lot about a lot of things. And what I also recognize is that my audience, are people who are either in business or they're on their individual journey. And if I can keep bringing topics to light for them, or maybe share topics that they haven't even looked at, or maybe didn't even know they could be interested in, then that's really what I'm trying to use my podcast for. So I look at having transformational leaders as well as holistic healers on the show. Like I said, to share some of their expertise in the areas that they work in, but also to share their story of transformation, because most people have had transformation in their life if they really consider, their story and how they got to where they are today. So that's truly the basis of the podcast.
Yeah, absolutely. And you also tell me that you work with people to sort of get over their fear in order to succeed. And you also help people find a way to sustainably get rid of burnout. So I'm wondering if you can tell me all about it.
Sure. I mean, burnout is such a huge one for me. And the whole journey for me becoming a coach, I think from early on, I always think I knew I was meant to be some sort of coach, mentor, or that. Because of my curiosity, I love to learn, and then I love to share. And I suffered that burnout for 2 years before I actually admitted that I was in burnout. And what I wanted to do with part of my coaching is to help others realize that when they're in burnout a lot sooner, or if we can catch it and they don't fall in burnout, that would be a major goal for me. So burnout is really important. It's, creates a lot of, it doesn't create, but businesses create a lot of burnout. Jobs create a lot of burnout. Families create a lot of burnout. And it seems to be all over the place. And, certainly this pandemic has exacerbated it. And if I could be someone that could help people, as I said, either eliminate from their life, navigate it while they're in it, or completely help them miss falling out into burnout, then that's the goal of my coaching. And so I think you had also asked me a question about, what are some, or what is kind of the foundation of burnout, or how do we sustainably eliminate burnout? Yeah, because I think that's a really big thing, is people don't realize, like I did it for 2 years. I'm someone who's physically active, so I thought my physical activity was helping me not burn out. Oh, I'd eat a salad every other day, or eat at least 60% of my meals would be like super healthy, and I thought, oh, I'm eliminating burnout, this is what I'm doing. But the truth is, I still fell into burnout. And so what people don't realize is that there's work that you can do around burnout, such as mindset, resilience, boundaries. All those things will contribute to you having a sustainable outcome to not fall back into burnout. So a sustainable, I don't want to call it a cure, because we never know what's going to happen in life and where it'll take you. But if you have the right mindset, if you have worked on building resilience and building boundaries in your life, you will be able to sustainably navigate or sustainably eliminate burnout. We're a world of quick fixes. Take this for a week and you're going to feel better. Great. I'll boost myself with B12 vitamin and I'll feel great for the month. And then once I stop taking that B12 vitamin, what happens? I start feeling exhausted again. So we're always about quick fixes, or like pick up a class at the gym, but it's all about figuring out what's really going to work for you, naturally for you. Because if you start doing things that don't naturally just come to you, so for example, I'm a runner and I love to run, and that's part of my outlet and part of what helps me stay out of burnout. But to ask somebody who's never run, or somebody who knows that they don't like to run, to come and run, it'll help them eliminate burnout, is kind of the wrong message. It's the wrong thing to get them on. We want to find what works for them from a physical activity standpoint and get them more engaged with that.
Yeah, absolutely. I always say that everyone's portrait of success is different, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. There's so many ways that you can get to success, and success means something different to everyone, and how you do it when people become successful, it's something that probably naturally happened within them, that they don't realize that they followed.
Yeah, you've shared a little bit about this in your last answer, but I will frame it this way. I know that you live out there in British Columbia, and I know that you're a proud Canadian. So tell me, for you, what's the best part about living in BC and being Canadian as well?
Sure. I mean, you know what? I used to think I wanted to live somewhere else in the world, and I still do. There's still parts of the world that I would love to go and stay and maybe, do the 6 month here and 6 month there. But probably I would say in the last couple of years is really when I fell in love with Canada again. And what I mean by that is, my friends can definitely attest. I was always like, oh, Canadians, they're so funny. They're like, you're Canadian. I'm like, I know. But I think for me, Canada is a very safe place to live. You can have a really nice lifestyle here. I believe there is freedom, although let's just forget about what's going on right now for a second. But in general, Canada is a very free place to live. And moving to the West Coast, for me, was that where else in Canada can I live that's very different than the urban life or the small town life that I grew up in. And Vancouver offers a very different climate than the rest of Canada. So talking not BC in general, but Vancouver specifically, being an urban center, it's on the water, meaning the ocean, not the lake. You have mountains, so you can go skiing or you can run, mountain bike, whatever it is that you want to do, just at your doorstep. So living in Vancouver and BC has been really a great experience. I've been here for 16 years now, and I've explored so much of BC, the islands, the interior where we have wineries, obviously the mountains, everyone knows Whistler. So it's a beautiful place where, all year round you can stay active. All year round it stays mild, and you can really, do a lot of different things here from week to week. So I think just the variety of it, I'm someone that likes variety in my life. So it speaks to me very well.
It's the spice of life, isn't it?
Yeah, exactly.
And finally, Catherine, I'm curious, if they make your life into a movie, what do you think you would want the main storyline to be, and how would you want your legacy to be portrayed?
That's such a great question, Kevin. And there's probably a lot more thought I can put into it. But in general, I think for legacy, I mean, as someone who lived life authentically and with unwavering integrity, someone who empowered others to do the same.
Yeah, absolutely. And finally, tell me, if people want to get connected with you, Catherine, what's the best way they can do that?
Oh, thanks. Yeah, so I do have a website. It's catherinemccourt.com. I also have 2 Instagram accounts. So one is my podcast, fearless.future, and the other one is at Catherine L. McCourt.
Fantastic. Well, Catherine, I have to tell you, I was delighted to engage in a conversation with you about life, business, and everything in between. Your time on my behalf and work in this space are most appreciated. And I want to thank you for being here this afternoon.
Thank you so much, Kevin. It was such a pleasure to meet you. And, I truly am inspired by your story. And I love how you have brought purpose into your life, or knew really early on that what it is that you wanted to do, and made sure that it was a part of it. So I encourage anyone listening to this, if they don't fully know you yet, is to read about your story. And it's very inspiring. And thank you so much for having me on. It's really appreciated.